share with you this experience that I had about a few months ago. A young man came to me, teenager, and he told me, what's the evidence that God really did create the world and create the Big Bang? Young teenager from a Muslim family. What's the evidence? How do I know that God really has the identity that Islam says? I mean, no one can really go back and verify that or see the identity of God. So how do I know? Now, I'll summarize for you what I said to him. I told him the following. I told him, if I have a barrier over here, a piece of cloth. Imagine I'm holding a piece of cloth here in my hand. And then suddenly, you find an object being thrown, or it moves from behind the cloth. I'm holding a cloth, and then there's a car. And then you see the car moving on the table. So you see a car suddenly is moving. You don't know what's behind the cloth, do you? You can't see. Did my hand push it? You don't know. Was there a robot that pushed it? You don't know. Was there a big magnet that pushed it? You don't know. Was it a wind that pushed it? You don't know. But what do you know? Somebody pushed it. Something pushed it, right? Do you doubt that? Of course not. Because a car, a physical object, doesn't have the power to move itself. It needs an external factor to push it. Let's go to the Big Bang. There's a barrier. We can't see what happened, right? We don't know. But we do know one thing. The universe is moving. And when there is movement, it needs a mover. Every effect needs a cause. So I know something moved it, right? I know something definitely moved the universe. But I don't know who. Like this young man was saying, but how do you know it's God? How do you know it's God? You're making up this identity called God. Okay, something moved it, but how do you know it's God? I'm like, okay, let's intellectually see who could have moved the universe. Question, whatever that thing is that moved the universe, was it a physical object that had matter and particles or no? If you say yes, then I will ask you, okay, where did that particle come from? Now, if you infinitely keep going back without a starting point, then logically it's impossible to have movement. I'll give you an example. Let's say I have a document signed by a judge, a court order. I bring it to you, you tell me who signed this? I tell you a judge. Which judge? I refer you to Mr. X, Ibad Abidi. Mr. Ibad Abidi, the judge. You go to Mr. Ibad Abidi and you tell him, who signed this? He tells you, another judge. You go to that other judge and you tell him, who signed this? Another judge. And they infinitely keep doing that. In the end, you tell them, look, I have a signature here on paper. Somebody signed it. It can't go on infinitely, can it? Because logically, if something goes for infinitely, then it has no starting point. If it has no starting point, then there is no signature. Then who signed it? So you know logically somebody put the Big Bang in motion. Something, whatever it was. That thing cannot be physical particles, because if it's physical particles, okay, what put it in motion? What created it? Where did it come from? You cannot go back infinitely. You need a starting point. He's like, okay, you need a starting point. I'm like, okay. So we've discovered one thing about the one who caused the Big Bang. He's not physical. He's above time and space. Logically, do you accept that or no? Give me another possibility. He's like, well, there is no other possibility. I'm like, exactly, there's no other possibility. Something that has no physical space created it. It's an external force that created it. He's like, but how do I know that's God? I'm like, okay, good question, wait, be patient. I told him that thing, whatever it is it powerful or is it weak? He's like, if that thing can generate a Big Bang that creates this universe, must be very powerful. I'm like, so do you have any doubts that that thing is powerful or no? He's like, no, I don't have any doubt. It must be powerful. I'm like, okay. We discovered the second piece of the puzzle. This thing is above time and space, number one, and powerful, number two. Number three, This thing, whatever it is, does it have knowledge or it's ignorant and doesn't know what it's doing? He said, well, when I look at the design in the Big Bang and how it expanded, you know what Stephen Hawking says? Stephen Hawking, the one who died, the physicist, he didn't believe in God, unfortunately. He said, if the rate of the expansion of the universe 1 second after the Big Bang had been slower by 1 part in 100,000 million, the universe would have recollapsed before it could reach its present state. If it was that much slower, do you know what that number is? Do you know what that number is? How small? It's not 1%. It's not 0.01, 0.001. He says, a scientist says, an Oxford scientist, his name is Roger Penrose. He says, if you want to write this number, if you put 0.000, if you put a 0 next to every atom in the universe. Do you know how many atoms there are in the universe? Your body has 7 trillion atoms. If you put a 0 next to every atom in the universe, you couldn't still write how small this chance is. And Stephen Hawking says, if the universe, when it was expanding, if the rate, the speed of expansion was that much smaller, the universe would have recollapsed. It couldn't reach its present size. See how delicate it is? Whoever that thing is, who could make something like that, does it have knowledge or no? He said, yes, it has knowledge. I told him, Habibi, the one who's above time and space and has knowledge and power, that's God. What do you call him other than God? You want to call him something else? Islam says that's God. That name is Allah. That's all we're saying. We're saying Allah is the one who has knowledge and power. These are His 2 most important attributes. If you really, my dear brothers and sisters, do the probability, it's shocking how atheists reject the truth. Wallahi, it's shocking. When you tell them when the Big Bang happened, why did it expand at this rate and not any other rate? Random. Okay, why was, when the Big Bang happened, you had these amounts of these gases forming? Hydrogen X%, let's say 10%, helium, oxygen, and so on and so forth. When you ask them, okay, let's say hydrogen is 10%. Why 10%? Why not 15? Random, by chance. Okay, oxygen, let's say 20%. Why 20%? Why not less? Why not more? Random, 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 random. And then when the stars formed, random, random. Everything is a chain of randomness. And then when you look at planet Earth, well, why do we have the atmosphere that we have? We have X amount of oxygen. If there was more oxygen on Earth, the Earth would be flammable. You know that? If you light something, the whole planet burns. Because oxygen is highly flammable. And that's why the firefighters, they use what? They don't use oxygen to put down fire, extinguish it. What do they use? Carbon, right? If there was less oxygen, you would have suffocated. Okay, why this much oxygen in the atmosphere? Random. Why this much nitrogen? Random. Why this one? A bunch of randoms. Their deen is a bunch of randomness. And that's the problem, my dear brothers and sisters. Allah says, look at my signs. Look at my signs. And that's the peak of irresponsibility that they have. Let me give you another example. Let's say when you want to ride a plane, you are told that the chances of the plane falling is 0.0001%. What does that mean? That means what are the chances of the plane not falling? 99.999%. Now, if you were a reasonable person, would you go on this flight or no? Would you? Yes, of course. Imagine if someone said, I don't fly, I don't go anywhere because there's a 0.0000001% chance of the plane falling. Is this person a reasonable person? You know what the atheist says? The atheist says the chances of this universe coming to where it is today by randomness and laws of probability is 0.00000, go a trillion, zero is 1. They think it's a 1. We believe it's impossible, but fine. It's 0.00001. That means automatically, what do you have on the other side? that there is an intelligent creator who created the universe 99.9999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999. The atheist takes the 0.0001 and lets go of the 99.99999. That's the peak of ignorance. That's the peak of ignorance. Because either the universe was created by chance. What are the chances? Very small, according to atheists. Or somebody created it. Why do you choose this over that one? That's the peak of irresponsibility.